Okay, so now we made it to the next section, which are conditionals. A lot of these sections are important, but this is one of those sections that I really want to make sure you can kind of get a good understanding, because it's just going to serve you well as we go forward. And so again, if you're new to this channel and you're not a part of the cohort, the curriculum is in the link so you can follow along with the curriculum, and it is free. So now we're getting ready to hop into conditionals. So again, before we hop into conditionals, what is a variable? Tell me what a variable is. Tell me what a data type is. When I say declare me a variable, what does that mean? What is an expression? What is a Boolean expression? What is an operand? How many operators are there, and what are the ones that you're going to use most of? When I say in JavaScript everything is an object, except, fill in the blank for me. As we keep moving forward, I want to keep on drilling you and keep refreshing your mind so you do not forget these terms. You need to know these terms. These are important. So let's get into the curriculum. So here we go. Conditionals. At the beginning of this chapter, we decided that we wanted to be able to write code that only execute when a given condition is true. Again, here is our motivating example. Consider a baking application that can remind you when a bill is due. The application will notify you that a bill is due soon, but only if the bill has been already paid, or has not already been paid, sorry. We summarize the condition as follows. Send a notification of an upcoming bill if the statement the bill is unpaid is true. In such a program, JavaScript uses Booleans to represent the conditional the bill is unpaid. Based on the truth of this statement, the program executes or skips the code for notifying the user. The JavaScript construct that enables such behavior is called a conditional. We use if statements. The most basic form of a conditional is an if statement. Here's how to create one in JavaScript. Here's the syntax. If, then some conditional, this conditional we want to check. There go that word check. And also anything inside these parentheses has to be true in order for some code, which is to be executed if the condition is true. So whatever we put in here to check, it has to be true. Remember that. It has to be true in order for this block of code to execute. Let's look at each component of this new syntax. Now, like I always say, don't memorize the syntax, understand what it does. That's what's important here. It's okay you can always Google and look up what the syntax is, but if you understand what it does, it's just going to make searching and doing things a whole lot easier, especially when we give you different scenarios that gets the same results. Now, the if statement consists of a header line and a body right here. And this is the body right here. Everything between these two parentheses, open and closing brackets. The headline begins with the keyword if, followed by a Boolean expression enclosed in parentheses. Here we go. These are the parentheses. The condition that we're checking will be inside those parentheses. Conditions is a Boolean expression, an expression that evaluates to either true or false. The statements that follow the condition within the curly braces make up a code block. Let me explain again. If whatever is inside these parentheses is true, this code block will execute. But if it's false, it does nothing. And we're going to talk about how to cover that when it does nothing, because we want it to kind of give a user experience. So if you don't add what we go over in a minute, an else statement, then the code is not going to run because it wasn't true. But you may want to have some type of fail-safe to kind of notify the user, to give a user a good experience, to show them that that this statement wasn't true. So it gave me some other block of code that it ran instead. Now the code within the brackets will be executed if the condition evaluates the true. If the condition evaluates the false, the code within the brackets is ignored. So what I'm trying to say here, you don't have to add an else clause here. It just won't run. We just add the else clause, and we're going to explain to you why you may want to add an else clause or else statement. Now, here is an explicit example that mimics our banking program. Remember I said about state? This is a global, what we call a variable that can be used inside this conditional. So we can have multiple conditions if we needed to. But let's say we created this variable called bill has been paid, and we set it to false. Now, if, and we got that not in front of it, this is a variable, an object that's holding a Boolean. Not bill has been paid, which it reverses it to true. So now this is true. Not bill has been paid. Council law, your bill is due soon. Because we know that we set it to false, but we reversed it to true so that this can run. If we keep it at false, if we didn't put that not in front of it, this would be false. This wouldn't run because the bill will still be false. You got to play around with this to understand it. Trust me, that may be confusing, but the more you do, the more you're going to improve at this. So the bill is due soon because it wasn't paid. Now the message prints because bill has been paid is false. So the not bill has been paid evaluates to true. If we were to change the value of bill has been paid to be true, then not bill has been paid will evaluate to false, and the code block would not execute. So it has to make sense. The reason why we make these conditionals is because we want to check something. We're going to do a lot of checks. You're going to create a lot of conditionals. So you got to take it one step at a time to make sure you understand how to make it work. Remember, we're thinking about state. The state of something. The state of this variable or this Boolean is false. And so if it's false, for me to make it true and reverse it, I need to add the not symbol in front of it. So now it's true. And so now this code will execute. The bill will be due soon. The bill is due soon. Okay. Let's play around with that. Let me go down. Let's go here and inspect it. I'll open it up. Because you got to see this for this to make sense. So I'm going to right click, paste it in. So I have I've declared and I initialized the variable. I've given it the data type of Boolean, which is false. So now when I hit enter, your bill is due. It runs. Now push the up arrow key. I want to go and I want to turn this into true now. So now it's true. So if I hit enter, nothing happens. That's what we were talking about. So this now is now false. Remember I talked about truthy and falsy. It's always going to be true unless I make it false. I made it false here. I reversed it to false. So let's go back and look at this. Now, if I take that not off of there, it's now true again. And it runs because I set it to be true. So everything in those parentheses has to be true unless you make it false. All right. Now, the condition in if statement can be any Boolean expression such as name strictly equal to Jack the string, or points is greater than 10. So points may be initialized as 0 or 12. So if it's 12 points and greater than 10, we know that's true. So whatever's in the code block is going to be executed. Or this could be a compound operator where we're checking if name Jack, if Jack is in the name variable, then that's true. If Jack or that value is in the name variable and that's true, then or points is greater than 10, and if points, that variable is holding 12, only one of these have to be true in order for a code block to execute. And so additionally, the code block associated with a conditional can be of any size. This conditional has a code block with 2 lines of code. All right. Now this is, we may use this when you're doing 99 bottles of beer. They use this type of logic. Or we may want to find if a number is even. This is the syntax right here. This is the logic for it. If num modulus 2 is strictly equal to 0 and num is greater than 3, then it's going to console.log the num is even. So whatever num is, it's going to say it's even. And then it has to be greater than 3 for both of these to run. So what does that mean? So if I have to create a variable. For you to test this, you have to initialize a variable num. So you will have to say let num equal 4. Okay. So now, instead of this is actually referencing 4 modulus 2. So remember how modulus work. Remember when we're dividing something, if I'm dividing by 2 into 4, I'm not going to have a remainder. This is how we check to see if something is even or odd. So if this is true and is strictly equal to 0, because remember this data type is going to be a number, and is strictly equal to 0, that means that there was no remainder left over. If there was no remainder left over, then this is going to be true. So if this is the number 4, 2 divided by 4 is 2, so there's no remainder. So this statement is going to be true. Over here now, because I have made num 4, and I say if num is greater than 3, that's also true. So this is going to execute. Okay. Let's run it. I'm gonna come over here to the console. Let's create a variable. Let num equal to 4. And then you're gonna have to hit Shift Enter to go to the next line. Because if you just hit Enter right now, it's gonna save it. But we want to do a Shift Enter so we can do the next line. So now I'm going to paste in that code. So now num is 4. So even and is greater than 4, those two should run. So 4 is even, 4 is greater than 3. So that worked. So now let me go up. Now let me turn this to 2. Oh, not 42, just 2. What do you think is going to happen now? Both of these have to be true for this code block to run. If neither one, if both of these are not true, what happens? Let me hit enter. Nothing, because although 2 is going to give me a 0, it lets me know that 2 is even, but 2 is not greater than 3. All right, so I'm gonna go a little bit further because I want to get down to else clause. So here, While not required, the code within a conditional code block is typically indented to make it more readable. Similarly, it is common convention to place the opening curly brace at the end of the first line, like up here. It doesn't have to go there, but that's by convention. We do that to let us know that there's a code block. And the closing at the end on the line of its own following the last line of the code block. So we always put it at the bottom like that. So sometimes we're going to tell you to format your code, because what happens is, well, you'll create a conditional or variable or something with the code block, and you'll put the opening and closing bracket separate on different lines. And we may tell you to go ahead and format your code, but VS Code will automatically do it for you with a linter on it, though. We can set those rules up to do it for you automatically. So here, should you follow such conventions, even though ignoring them will not create an error? To see why, compare the readability of this example, which is functionally equivalent to the one above. See how that looks? It looks kind of confusing. It's kind of hard to tell. It's hard to read that. That's why it's better to do the convention like this. Aside from being more aesthetically pleasing, the first version also makes it easier to visually identify the part of the matching curly brackets, which helps prevent syntax errors. Warning: if the code block associated with a conditional consists of only one line, then the enclosing curly brackets can be omitted, like so, right here, if it's only one line. However, this is not a best practice, and it makes the logic harder to follow. So what we're saying, don't do it like this, although it will work, but it's not the best practice. We will use curly brackets for all conditional code blocks and encourage you to do so as well, at least until you become comfortable with reading and writing more complex JavaScript. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop the video here. We're going to have a part 2 to this. Okay. So again, practice. The more you do, the more you improve. We'll finish this up in the next video.